first started in like this industry, a lot of my friends back home were just like, "Oh, like, are you sure? Like, oh, be careful," or blah blah blah. And I'm just like, "But why? Like, why are you saying these things?" Or like, where is that like misdirection coming from? It's coming from your inability to see someone else's vision. So when you as an individual have something in your head and you are very like passionate about it, you're very like, I can do this, don't stray away from that, because at the end of the day, it is what comes from inside of you that's going to really show the outside and show people like what you can do. And no one else can tell you what you can do, and no one else can say or speak for you in any of those regards. It really has to come from your own beliefs, your own passion, your own confidence. So really just hone in on who you are and build your confidence.
Welcome to the Coffee and Banana Podcast, where we speak to entrepreneurs, thought leaders, executives, artists, and other cool people while grabbing a cup of coffee. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with executive producer Keyon Slowly. Keyon speaks on his experiences working on bigger productions in Vancouver like Deadpool, 50 Shades of Grey, and more. He also explains how to get into the industry in Vancouver. Mr. Slowly speaks on his involvement on the Canadian music scene. All that and more on today's episode of Coffee and Banana. You're from the Six.
I am from Toronto, from T Dot as it used to be referred to, but
Nice.
now it's the Six because of Drake. And
Shout out Cardinal for the T Dot
for
thing.
sure, definitely. But yeah, I'd say like being
So like specifically, like I would say your experience, you being from Toronto, and why did you say, okay, I'm gonna focus on try to make the West Coast a thing rather than I'm gonna work at home?
Well, that's the thing. Like for me, it was, and I think there is like some positives for this, because being from outside the city, you have a different perspective as to what is in the city, and you're seeing it from a different light. When I came here, I wasn't jaded to like the beauty and the culture that can be brought up from this city. So I was like, okay, let's see what we can do with this crazy place that we're in. And at the end of the day, we're still in Canada, so I'd say we represent Canada more so than just one area.
Of course.
So that's the main thing for me. And being from Toronto, it was a great experience because I got to see firsthand how an artist and how a brand can take over, not necessarily take over, but have an influence or an impact within the city that they are from or reside in. So,
And I actually want to stop you there because like we had this conversation in the past, and you were telling me, because of course we know Drake a little bit earlier than everybody else, but you, of course, being in Toronto, you had like what is it, like a personal experience to that from the beginning when he was laying the groundwork. You were telling me that as soon as he had one of his tracks on the radio, that was, I guess, the city's way of like giving him props.
Yeah.
Speak more on that.
that song that we're talking about right now is called City Is Mine. I remember hearing that and just like seeing.
Is that the solo one or the one featuring Cardinal?
No, that's a solo one. That's
Okay.
a solo one. That is one that really started like showing me like more and more the power of like a person or their brand, in the sense that you start to see like, oh, this guy's actually like making a name for himself like within the city, and people are respecting him more and more. And then you start to see him like get signed to Young Money, and then Lil Wayne, and then you're just like, oh man, like, because Lil Wayne was huge at that time.
Of course, that was
like,
the peak
huge
of
at the
his
time.
like
So,
Carter 3.
so like when that happened, like people just started to like really jump on board with what Drake was doing, what OVO was doing, and it inspired the city more so than anything else. I'd say that was one of the main things, is the fact that people from Toronto started to get a sense of they could do it as well.
Nice.
So with that being said, that's one of the biggest things for left sides, to show that everyone has some form of creativity or some form of like artistry, and it doesn't have to limit itself to creativity or artistry, but anything can happen where if you just try to do something, you can achieve it. So that's kind of what I was able to take from being in that city with that whole thing happening at that time, and being able to take that to another city and now do something with that ideology. So
Gotcha. Well, I rock with the left side movement. I think what you guys have built up in the last few years, especially the last 2 years more specifically, I would say you guys are very focused, and like the branding overall was something that I admired, even if I didn't know. Like at first it was DK that I knew about, even if I didn't know like who was involved or what was going on, that left side really stuck out to me. And it's a great name. It's definitely one of those names that you hear the first time and you're like, okay, this is catching on. And I think that you've built a solid movement, and you guys are like a lot of movements in the city, just like in the foundational stages. And for you, I think it goes a little bit further because you have the film aspect. So, like, let's transition from music to a little bit on the film side. How did that come up to play, and how did you say, like, I'm going to do this Left Side Studios as well?
Well, it was actually super random because for me, when I started doing anything with Left Side or with DK, I was actually working at the bank. And when I was working
Nice.
at the bank, I was working at a TD that was very close to.
Shout out TD Bank.
That was
Drake,
very,
give them a shout out. Did you hear that song?
I did not. No.
Yeah, he Family Feud remix with Lil Wayne.
Oh, okay.
He's like, I heard TD Bank giving loans or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue. You're working the bank.
Yeah, I was working at the bank, and what happened was super random because, well, I guess it wasn't random because it was bound to happen.
Being in Vancouver.
Being in Vancouver and the proximity in which I was to two of Vancouver's main film studios. So when I was working at the bank, I was working very close to Vancouver Film Studio as well as Bridge Studios, which are big production houses that house a lot of the TV shows and movies that are actually filmed in Vancouver.
Oh, no way.
So from that, I was...
And how did you have contact with these guys before you were involved?
I didn't have any contact, and that's the thing. Like from working at the bank, I just dealt with a lot of my clients. Were film industry workers.
I see.
So I would come, and they would come in and deposit their checks, and I would just have a conversation with them because I always thought it was interesting. I was like, oh, like you're working on this TV show and you're doing this, like that's pretty cool. Like I watched that show.
Definitely.
Right. So it what happened was. This random grip, and it could have been anyone in terms of what department they were in, whether it's set deck or props or lighting, but it was a grip came in. It was just like, oh, like the industry's busy right now, like you should go apply. And from there, I was just like, obviously, like how do I get in? Like what do I got to do? And
you're in college this time, or you just finished?
I just finished.
Okay.
I was actually going to school, but I was kind of like transitioning out of school and like trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because there were a couple things that I was doing at the time, but when that happened, I kind of jumped on it and I was just like, okay, like how do I get in? What do I got to do? And the way you start is you become what's called a permittee, or essentially a worker on probation for the union, and you have to accumulate a certain amount of days before you're a member within the union.
And is this like standard or just like your case?
No, it's standard. Like this is how you get into the union.
Say that one more time. So like someone wants to get into film or just work behind the scenes. Repeat that one more time. Like how would they start?
Well, you have to apply. You have to get into one of the film unions within Vancouver. You don't have to go through IATSE, which is the main film union within Vancouver. You can go through ACFC, you can do Commercial World, but to be a union member, you have to go through IATSE. So,
and do you need like a educational background in film?
Yes, you have to go to film school, but when I got in, it was so busy. They were pretty much just like giving people jobs to say, hey, like we're in Vancouver, we are housing a lot of productions. We need people, and we're willing to train them essentially. So from there, I started doing day calls, like maybe working like once or twice a month, doing film while going to school and working at the bank at the same time. So I was trying to balance like a couple other things at the same time. And what happened to me, which is why I was like, I'd say I'm lucky in a situation where I got a phone call to the further adventures of Max and Banks. So when I got that phone call, I was like, oh yeah, like this sounds like some kids show, like, well, like whatever, like I guess I'll go out, hang out, like make some money.
What's it called, Maxi Banks?
No, the further adventures of Max and Banks.
Max and Banks.
Yes. So when I got that call, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come out and I'll get my days, I'll learn more, but I wasn't too enthused about it because it just wasn't something that I was interested. I was more interested in working on shows that I knew. But
you wanted to go for the opportunity.
Exactly. So So what happened was that turned out to be the code name for 50 Shades of Grey.
Dope.
So when that happened, I kind of got a jump start to the film industry, to how things happen, seeing the highest of the highest. I got to
That's
network
amazing.
with some of the best like grips within Vancouver and like build my name with them. They knew who I was, and then I got to like from there jump to another movie, and then another movie, and then like another big TV show.
Let's go with 50 Shades of Grey. So when you
Mm-hmm.
just started at this stage, like how many productions were you involved in before this?
Maybe I had maybe like 10 or 15 days total in the industry. So 50 Shades of Grey was like my first show ever.
Wow.
And that's where I was
Like production, right?
Yeah, first like full on show, and what was great about that was I got in and I immediately got my membership from doing that show because they were filming 2 and 3 at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my 60 days to be a member within that one show.
Wow.
So from there, I just jumped on to the next movie, which was Death Note, and then the next movie, or it was a TV show. I worked on Altered Carbon, and then Deadpool, then Predator, and then
Wow.
Skyscraper. So
Did you meet 50 Cent?
no, 50 Cent. Where was he?
I thought he was in Deadpool. No, not Deadpool.
no.
Predator.
No, he wasn't in Predator.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
positive.
All right. Well, yeah.
That would have been cool though. It would have been cool to meet 50 Cent.
Of course.
But yeah, so
'Cause he
for
was
me,
spotted in a van.
yeah, for me, it all happened so randomly, and I also have to shout out Jeff Swicker because he was one of the people
Shout out Jeff.
that I started doing anything with, and he was someone that I saw him as like he was working in the film industry while I was working at the bank, and I'm like, man, like you're my age, like what are you doing, like how are you like able to do this? He's like, I just did it, and then from there, he like really like kind of was very receptive to me because I was like, man, like I want to be able to learn what you what you know, and be able to do what you do. So he was always working and knew he wanted to be a director of photography. So I was like, he's like, whenever I have a shoot, just come out and learn. So I just did like a whole bunch of free shoots, like
Nice.
just going out on weekends while I was working full time. And
Listen to all the people out there who don't want to do free shoots, who don't want to get the experience. The man himself, Keyon Slowly.
Yeah.
Do you recommend it for people?
that's the thing. Like when you're starting out, you kind of can't say no to anything. You have
Cool.
to be able to build your network. You have to be able to like really hone in on the craft, and you can't do that by expecting people to pay like thousands of dollars for things that you aren't even aware of. Because
Of
at
course.
this point, like I'm still learning, but I've seen some of the biggest productions in the world, so I'm able to now reproduce or recreate what I'm already seeing. But if I wasn't able to see these things or go out on these things and learn firsthand, then I wouldn't be able to talk about what I'm like talking about. So for anybody, I would recommend being able to just do things that if you're trying to do this in the industry or you're trying to do that, you want to be able to actually just do it. And if that means going out for free and learning and figuring it out, then that's what you got to do. So that was me. Like that was like 2 years of going out on every weekend. Like I got fired for going out on the weekends.
Whoa.
And just because I knew what I wanted to do, and I was able to say like, this is how I'm going to get there. And just from knowing what you want to do and just doing it, then you're just going to like build your name and build your like confidence to just do whatever you want to do. So
Dope. And then like at what point did you say like I'm doing this full time and kind of let go of the bank situation?
pretty immediately, which is funny because what happened was the only way a permittee is able to continue working is if they get called back continuously. So I got my call to 50 Shades of Grey on a Wednesday. And on Thursday, I called in sick. And then on Friday, I had a shift. And I went in and I called in sick then. And then on Saturday, I quit. So
Dope.
it was pretty like, it
Do
happened
you
very
regret this
quickly.
decision?
Definitely not.
Awesome.
Definitely not. It's funny because one of the main people who gave me the opportunity, his name's Aaron, and he always references like, hey, remember when you used to work at the bank? Like, do you ever want to go back there? I'm just like, man, like you took me out of that, and I have to like thank him for like a lot of it because he was the person who actually hired me on 50 Shades of Grey and gave me the opportunity to learn and and saw like a kid who knew nothing about the industry,
Yep.
but he just liked me as a person. So he was able to like train me and really invest in myself. So because of him, I'm at where I'm at. So
Hey man, don't sell yourself short, because like I know you for like, I'd say probably like closer to 2 years now or 1 year and a half. But like you learn things quickly, you pick up on things. You're a very smart guy. So don't sell yourself short, man. Like I think that he probably saw more potential in you than you did at that time. But I want to talk about more so like, sure, you worked as a key grip. First of all, to our audience, what is a key grip?
Well, that's the thing. I actually started off as just a grip. So when you're a grip, you are a part of the lighting or cinematography department, in the sense that cinematography is camera, lighting, and grip. So those are the three things that make up cinematography. Grip has a couple different roles. It's not very direct in the sense of what we actually do, because we are the glue between like the camera department and the lighting department, in the sense that camera deals with the camera. They say, okay, here's the camera, we're gonna make this camera roll. Lighting deals with like the placements of the lights and the technical side of like what lights we're using, how we're going to use these lights to do it. And grip facilitates both the camera and lighting department, in the sense that grip is responsible for camera motion. So anytime you see a camera moving, whether it's on like a crane where you have like a shot that starts like this and goes down and blah blah blah, like a grip is responsible for making that shot. As well as say like you're using lighting, and there are two people in a scene, but they're different like skin tones, so you're gonna light them differently based off of how you're gonna expose the scene, right? So the grip would come into play and say like, I'm gonna cut this light off of this person, and I'm gonna diffuse this light so that this light is softer because this person's complexion is different. So and like when you're doing like, say you're watching a scene where like the person's driving a car. That car is like attached, or that camera is attached to that car, and the grips are responsible for attaching that camera to the car. So like camera motion and lighting facilitation is kind of like the short form answers, but so much goes on in like the grip world.
Definitely. And like, is that why you work, I would say, closely with maybe like Jeff or a lot of other DOPs, because you need that relationship? Yes,
like a good cinematographer is 90% only as good as their key grip and gaffer, just because the key grip and gaffer really make the cinematography's vision come to life. Whereas they say, okay, like, but a good DP has experience, you know what I mean? They've seen a lot, so they are able to make a lot of those decisions, but they still refer to their key grip and or gaffer when creating shots and doing setups. So the key grip is able to say, okay, that's realistic for this shot, or we can do that, or we can make this happen, and then figure out how to make this happen from a cinematography standpoint. So
that does sound like a little like there's more complexity than just like grip. You know, the word sounds so simple. I'm like, I'm just going to be moving some things. But if you need to know the ins and outs, in a sense, you're kind of doing a few jobs at once.
You are definitely like, and like that's the thing, like in order to be like good at like your job, you have to be able to know everyone else's job, and you have to be able to say, okay, like a little bit about it, in the sense that I know all the lights that we use, I know all the camera equipment we use, I know the lens sizes. I'm able to like make decisions from a standpoint of the lighting and camera department. That is what makes me good at my job. It's not just saying, oh, I can do a car rig. You know what I mean? Like that is something that allows me to get more jobs within like the key grip role, but it isn't what defines my role as like a filmmaker in a sense. It more just adds to what I do.
First of all, I want to take this opportunity to remind you that we are on every single platform, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast from. Please leave a comment where you can, and it would be incredible if you leave a positive review on iTunes and help spread the coffee and banana movement. This episode is sponsored by Shays Way, sourced from local Canadian human-grade seafood for your dogs and soon to be for your cats as well. Shays Way is a nutritious way to make any meal delicious. Visit them at www.shaysway.ca. That's SHAYSWAY.ca. KeysWay.ca. I used to think URLs were so easy to say online with these radio personnels, but now I'm seeing that this is tough. So just in case I mess it up, check the show line notes for your promo code. It's time for Coffee Tunes, a song highlighted per episode that the Coffee and Banana team believes that you should be listening to right now. Today's Coffee Tune is Cold World by Reprid, produced by Marc Wavy. This is your classic sad boy rap for the fans of Joji, Peep, and Juice WRLD, R.I.P. That's Cold World by Reprid. And shout out Josh. You know what? Shout out TikTok too. Cheers, y'all. Well, going from like working in these big productions to now Left Side Studios, where I guess you're a grip sometimes, but more so you're the executive producer. And you've had a lot of cool things under your belt. I would say like you did a few videos for Devontae, you got Carnell Official, you have Victoria Anthony, of course DK, and Elijah Woods and Jamie Fine, which is super all over the radio, and Dirty Radio, of course. We had a few co-productions, Balam Keel, and the list goes on. So what made you say that you're going to start your own production company in a sense and start executing, I would say like mid-level productions?
More
Mid to
just
high.
Yeah, I'd say like it's more just to expand the knowledge that you already have obtained within the industry, to say that I wasn't satisfied with just being a grip, because I felt like my technical prowess as well as my my understanding of the industry wanted me to do way more than just doing lighting and camera. So I wanted to expand what I've already learned and take that to another level. So from shooting like DK's videos and seeing how that process worked, I was just like, okay, like we can take this to another level and kind of spread this around the country. Whereas we're flying to Toronto to go do some shoots. We're flying artists out from Toronto to do shoots in Vancouver, flying to like other cities, LA, Ottawa, to shoot with these artists and kind of build a brand and from that perspective as well. Because film is something that I would say it speaks multiple languages in a sense that when you watch a movie, there's so much going on. There's so much going on within the movie that in your brain, it all just starts to make sense. So when there's like a soundtrack playing in a movie, or you see like really cool like art design or lighting or camera motion or cinematography, there's so many things that kind of spark your brain and your interest to see like, look at this cohesion. So that's kind of like where I wanted to like build my name within the development of this cohesion and being a grip and starting from like the crew standpoint, really strengthened that production role, because I was able to say who is going to be able to execute this vision the best, who, like what technology are we going to be able to use to execute this vision the best. So like from a crew standpoint, you really get to see the technical side of how things happen, the cameras that are used, the dollies, the cranes, the lights that are used. So from there you get to make a decision more definitively, in the sense, because you understand what goes into it from a higher level, and then you can scale that back and say, okay, like if this is how Deadpool made their movie, then this is how we are going to make our movie. So even if it's a music video, short film, or a commercial, we understand from where it's the highest of the high and scaling that to the production at hand.
Well, let me ask you a question. So now, I mean, going from like a grip to a producer, you're getting more involved in the business side, or at least just getting involved in general. Now you're dealing with the clientele. They're coming to you directly for a full production. How do you, as a producer, someone's talking to you, someone's telling you the details of a production, think about like giving them a right estimate that works for that production, and like not giving and managing the expectation of your client?
In terms of what they want out of it, or pricing?
Well, it's like what they want with their budget, or maybe they have like this small budget and they want like something that's way beyond their means, you know, or the other way around.
Well, for me, like one of the main things, and I just touched on that, is the understanding of what goes into it. So from an understanding of what it takes to make something happen, I'm able to listen and understand their vision and say, okay, like this is what they want. This is how they want it to happen. And from knowing what goes into it, I'm able to assess their criteria a bit more cohesively in a sense.
Okay.
Just because I understand like, okay, like you want this to happen. So I'm like, okay, like this is like the shot that you're thinking in your head. This is the technological side that needs to come into play. These are the people that need to be there if you want that to happen.
Gotcha.
So from a production standpoint, I always like am very like happy that I started from the crew side because I got to see and actually do what makes things happen. And then from a production side, I understand their vision. And from a creative side, working with DK and working with like other artists within Vancouver has shown me that and across Canada has shown me like more of the thought process in which someone wants to get something. So that's kind of like how it works for me.
Well, it's like, all right, you also know a lot of like other producers, other directors, and when you are trying to put a production together, how do you choose who's going to direct this? How do you choose who's going to be the people involved?
That's the fun part, to be honest. Like that is like one of the
Fun
things.
is a good way of saying it.
Yeah, because like for me, like I think that everyone can do anything. I really think that everyone has the ability to do anything, but I think that some people might have a better understanding of certain visions. For example, Lucavelli is one of the people that I work with closely, and I know for a fact that anything to do with cars, because he's a car guy, he'll be able to execute the most
Shout
efficiently.
out Lucavelli.
So yeah, there's like there's things like that, and like
He's
you have
not
to
just
think,
a pretty face.
Nah, definitely not. And he's a good photographer. He's an all right photographer. You got to check out his Instagram. He takes some pretty good photos of some of the girls in Vancouver. So if you like girls,
That's an interesting way of saying it.
you'll like his Instagram for sure. So it's at Lucavelli.
We're just saying that because he's around here. So.
But yeah, for me, it's more of an understanding of people's abilities and their likes and dislikes, and being able to make a team and essentially put a puzzle together. One of the things that I was actually talking to Lucavelli about earlier was as like one of the producers or an executive producer, you are essentially you're building a car. Like whether like you are a DOP or a director, the director might have like the best wheels that you put on this car. The DOP might have like the most solid engine, but as like the producer, you are building this car that's going to perform on this racetrack essentially. So if you have like a curved track, your car is going to be different from like a straightaway like track, right? So
Gotcha.
that's kind of like how you go into it, in a sense that you're trying to build this vehicle that is going to take this vision to this destination. So that's kind of like the best like reference that
Definitely. I think as a producer, you're more so like a little bit more team oriented, because you're not like, I gotta do this by myself, where most creatives are like that in my experience, where and maybe yours, I'm not sure, but they really are adamant about their ways, or like, this is how I see my vision. Where a producer is necessarily like, I have all these creatives, I need to make sure we execute this goal in just overall, and then picking this part and that part, and to create the car for Lucavelli.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, at the end of the day, like, it's not about who's the best. It's about who's going to execute this vision the most efficiently. So I feel like just being able to network with, like, all the creatives in Vancouver, a lot of filmmakers. And like I said, like, I went out on a lot of free shoots where I just met people.
Yep.
And I was able to say, okay, like, how can we work together? How can we, like, combine our abilities to make something cool and make something interesting or creative? So
This guy's the key of finesse. Like, talk to him for a second. He can convince like Jesus, the devil is a nice guy. Like, look at that smile. You can't say no to this guy. He's like, please do this shoot. And you're like, yeah.
I definitely try. And that's the thing. I definitely think that being able to have a conversation with every level of the production allows you to be a good producer, because coming from a crew standpoint where I was a grip, I was having these conversations with the crew. So I understand their expectations. I understand what they need to make something happen, and not just saying, "Oh, okay, we need a guy with a camera." You know what I mean? That's where
Gotcha.
like you're distancing yourself from the crew, and you aren't going to be able to know what to facilitate in the best way. You're kind of just depending on other people, whereas you as a producer should be able to be depended on in terms of, we need this to make it happen. This is what we will go into, and kind of answering these questions for them, and knowing and being able to have somewhat of an input on the situation at hand. So
I see.
I feel like that's very important too.
Building a production and gathering a full crew for anything is tough, but Keyon is one of the producers that I've worked with that really focuses on communication. Hence, you have a solid production. Let's take another break and give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Shay's Way. If you love your dog, then you want to give it nothing but the best. And the best can be seafood, plus it's human grade. Check out our Instagram and TikTok page at Coffee and Banana. We'll be giving out some Shay's Ways products. Thank you everyone for listening thus far. I hope you still got your coffee in your hand as you maneuver through the day. A reminder to rate, comment, and share our podcast. Help spread the message. Organic is the best way. And visit our website at coffeeandbanana.com for additional information on each episode. And now, back to our regular programming with Keyon. When you were a kid in school, like, did you like exams, or were you more of like the group projects? Where did you excel? He's like, everything, fam, A's across the board.
To be honest, my childhood was more oriented around sports and very much team sports. So I would say that the idea of being a producer and having like a hand in choosing the team and being like,
Well, what sport did you play?
I played football.
Football.
I played football. I ran track. I played soccer. I played basketball because all of my friends played basketball. So I was just like, all right, let me play basketball with all my friends.
You can get it one of these days.
Yeah.
Pause.
All right, I'll let me know when you want to lose on a basketball game. So.
Hey man, I'm not that good.
All right.
But we should play for money.
All right. This is very good banana bread, by the way. So.
Of course. See, we don't really advertise the banana bread. It's more for like the guests, for the experience. So it's like engraved in their head, you know. But no candy this time.
That's all right. I forgive you this time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Next time I'll definitely have it for you. Like, that's super cool. Like, you definitely have a lot of insight to this industry, and what I like about you is that you give away knowledge like it's nothing, you know, in a sense of like, when I talk to you, everything is valuable, like the game you just spit, but you want everyone around you to know. I'm talking to you for a while, you're giving me all this information, I'm like, yo, bro, please stop for a second. But like, I know it comes from like a place that you actually genuinely care for this industry, and you care for the people around this, and you want people to grow. You want people around you and like your team to know, hey, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm facilitating everything. And in a sense, like bringing a lot of people up, which a lot of people don't do. Most people seek, like, I would say, a talent that's already there and let's say work with them, while you see the potential in people and try to bring them up. There's a lot of directors that you worked with that I know personally that maybe don't have prior experience at like the higher levels, but you're the one that takes risk on them. Where did you get that sense of like just helping out a lot of people, or seeing the potential in these young directors, young editors, young compositors, you know?
Like I said earlier, like I really am like a true believer that anyone can do anything. So it really comes down to like their passion within what they're trying to do. Like for me, like I'd say like being a good producer is also being a good talent scout. It's also being like a good communicator.
Definitely. Communication is one of the main things.
It is one of the main things. So like once you're able to like have conversations with people and fully understand like where they're coming from and like the goals that are trying to be achieved, then you can like say if this is a right fit or if this is a wrong fit.
Definitely.
So I'd say that within like decision making like that, you're definitely relying on a lot of trust, but at the same time you have to be confident in what you're what you're putting out there. So I don't just work with everybody. I don't just like do things just because. I really like
Definitely. It's like
think
more
about it.
calculated,
Yeah, for
you know,
sure.
and you're very strategic about like what teams you assemble for certain productions. But the final product is always dope, you know, and like that's what the client cares for. And as a producer, you sometimes care for it more than the client a lot of times, you know?
Yeah, I'd say like if you're not like stretching boundaries and like really trying to take it to the next level, then you're not really doing anything. You're not like pushing things, you're not like trying. So for me, it's always about like pushing a boundary or trying to do something that you haven't seen before that is different, and like being so heavily influenced by the actual film industry within Vancouver. I try to make a lot of our videos be as cinematic as possible, or have certain elements within the film industry that you would have to have like multiple collaborators on to achieve these things. So that's kind of like where I step back and say, okay, like what's the vision? How is this going to be accomplishable? And then from there start to build the production. Because it's not just like, oh, like there's this. And I always tell people that productions are, in a sense, just a long schedule and a constant conversation, in the sense that from the beginning, like things are always changing. So once you're able to make everyone get everyone on the same page, that's when your production is going to be successful.
Awesome. Awesome. Any advice you have for the young producers or like just film fans that are interested in this industry? Maybe like they're high school students and they want to get involved. What would you say to them?
You just got to do it. Like even for people who say you want to be a director, or say you want to be a producer, you really just have to do it. If you want to be a director, just go direct a bunch of things, fail a bunch of times, do it properly the next time.
iPhone style,
You know what I mean? So
BlackBerry, Android.
and that's the thing, like anything that you have is a tool. You know what I mean? Like you're not limited, especially in 2019, you're not limited to having a cinema camera or having a like the best lenses. You can literally go shoot like a short film on your phone, or go shoot a music video on your phone nowadays. Like even for one of the videos that we shot for Devontae and Cardinal Official, we used a VHS cam app on our iPhone to get like a lot of that footage.
That's a life hack for you guys out there. Keyon's just spinning some game, so use iPhone apps and then sell it to top Canadian artists. If that's not finesse, I don't know what is.
So at the
But
end
the
of the day,
video's
like,
amazing, yo. And shout out Zetrix for editing that.
yeah, shout out Zetrix. Zetrix is huge. He's very like Zetrix is a director editor from Vancouver, and he's been a very big part of the development of Left Side Studios, because he has taken on a lot of the editing, and even for the first Devontae video I shot, and shout out Devontae because he's come to us time and time again to shoot his videos. The first Devontae video that we shot for Blessed, and shout out Liam Higgins, who's a DP out of Toronto, for being a part of that project, because that came from just like reaching out to Devontae and be like, hey, like let us shoot something for you, like let us do something. And when I came back with the footage, I was like, okay, who's gonna edit this? And then seeing Zetrix and his like passion for editing really like took that video to another level. So like without like building the team properly and understanding like what needs to go into it to have a really cool or really like good final product, you're kind of at a loss. And for Zetrix to like really buy into every single project that's handed to him, you have to like commend that. And shout out Mitch Bax. He's been a huge part of this process too. He's directed the majority of our videos, and he's a very good director and filmmaker himself. So I gotta
Shout
give a
out
lot of
Alex
credit.
as well.
Alex Cinematics, Alex Robichaux. He's a very good DP. There's so many people that I could like just shout out to for being like a part of this process. Mitch Baxter, who's not Mitch Bax, he's a DP himself as well. But there's so many people.
Bryn McCashin.
Bryn McCashin. He
Joel,
is.
JPM.
Yeah, Joel. Like definitely JPM. That's his monochrome. JPM is one of our roommates, and he's a great filmmaker, editor himself, and he is very, very integral to this process. He's directed a lot of our videos. He's edited a lot of our videos, like not sleeping at all, just getting it done and just being a part of the process. So like I say with like anything, like people can say like, oh yeah, Keyon, your videos are cool, or oh yeah, like you're a good producer, but I'm only as good as the people I'm working with. So
Definitely.
I'm lucky to work with the people that I have like a network with and who are genuinely friends. So at the end of the day, like I'm not just working with random people. I'm working with people that I've built relationships with and are able to now then ask them for their help or their passion or vision within a project. So that's kind of
Definitely.
like where things go.
And like even like the co-productions we did together with TIV Productions, like we were able to, I think like just working with you, you just seem to almost see things like 10 steps ahead, and you were like, okay, if this happens, we need this. If this happens, this. And you try to a little bit over prepare, which I'm a huge fan of, you know, the way you like to organize everything. And I know some of the shoots that we did, there was a lot of headaches, but people wouldn't know when they see the project or the product overall. They'd be like,
for
"That's
sure.
amazing!" You know, the Balam one was cool, and that Dirty Radio we did.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that one was a fun time.
Definitely,
But shout out
definitely.
JPM. Like he took on more responsibility than he initially signed on, and
Definitely.
he was like, "I'm gonna make sure this comes to life the way we envisioned it at the beginning," and the clients liked it, we liked it, and we can like sit back and be like, yo, we did something crazy.
Definitely.
And it's only February.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like for me, like at the end of the day, money will come when you do things properly. So for me, it's always about having the best end product. Otherwise, you're not gonna encapsulate people's interests or people aren't gonna care about it. And that goes for both the audience and the crew. So unless everyone's vision is taken into account, then it's not going to be something that is worthwhile, or people aren't going to reflect or relate to it because they don't care about it. So
see.
if you're not putting that passion into the production, then there's not going to be any reciprocation of that. Oh, this is interesting or this is cool when it comes out. So.
Definitely, definitely. But speaking on money, there are a lot of like young artists in the city that want a music video. And of course, they can just get a videographer to shoot something for them. But let's say on a higher production level where they would need a crew involved. What is your personal recommendation on actually investing on a music video to a young artist?
Well, that's the thing. Like, to be honest, like, you can't put all of your eggs in one basket. You can't say that this music video that looks amazing like a film is going to make your career.
Dope.
You know what I mean? You can't like really think that this
This guy's
gonna,
definitely not about the money. He's turning away clients.
but that's the thing. Like, I'm not gonna just tell you to shoot a music video if it's not gonna be worth it for you.
Facts.
Or because then no one's going to be happy and then you're just going to be upset and then that devalues the brand. Because for me, I'm about like taking things to the next level. So if we're just shooting like a random music video, then you're better off just like having your friend rent like a DSLR and shooting that. You know what I mean? But if you're trying to get a sense of the film industry within your videos, and yes, start a conversation. And that's all it takes. Because at the end of the day, like, you aren't going to just come to me and be like, oh, I need this sick ass music video. You're going to be like, okay, I need this and this is what I want to have happen. And then I'm going to reply to you and say, okay, to make this happen, this is what that's what's going to be required. Because at the end of the day, anything is possible. Like if you want to put someone on the moon, for example, that's all possible in today's like VFX world.
For sure.
It just requires a conversation to say, what are your expectations and how can we make those expectations reality?
Wow. Well said. Well said. So, Mr. Keyon Slowly, what makes you different than other producers?
That's a interesting question. For me, I'd say one of the biggest things that makes me like unique as a producer is really starting off from the crew standpoint, because a lot of what I'm able to produce is based off of the crew very heavily, in a sense that I'm able to base everyone's technical abilities off of the end product of the production. And when I'm having conversations from the director of photography and talking about the camera equipment and then talking to like the gaffer about the lighting and talking to like whether I'm hiring a key grip or I'm key gripping our own music videos, I'm able to now have a conversation that more involves the people that are part of the process.
I see.
So I'm able to not really just get told, oh, I need this. It's just like, hey, you probably need this. Or, hey, like this is something that will make the job better, and actually have a conversation with these people as opposed to just getting them telling me and me just being like, okay, I'll go get that for you. You know what I mean? Like,
I see.
That's where I think that one of my biggest strengths are is the ability to have a conversation with every single person on set and be able to like actually discuss what needs are and what requirements are and like how to make the end product as cohesive as possible.
Awesome. What advice do you have for young Keyon Slowly that's probably watching this or listening to this, wherever this is?
It's for me, I'd say like if anyone who wants to do something, you just have to do it. Like you just have to go do it regardless of what anyone says. Like when I first started in like this industry, a lot of my friends back home were just like, oh, like, are you sure? Like, oh, be careful or blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, but why? Like, why are you saying these things? Or like, where is that like misdirection coming from? It's coming from your inability to see someone else's vision. So when you as an individual have something in your head and you are very like passionate about it, you're very like, I can do this, don't stray away from that, because at the end of the day, it is what comes from inside of you that's going to really show the outside and show people like what you can do. And no one else can tell you what you can do, and no one else can say or speak for you in any of those regards. It really has to come from your own beliefs, your own passion, your own confidence. So really just hone in on who you are and build your confidence and try to just, you know, go for it and don't like hold back on what you want to do, and don't let anyone tell you can't do it.
I respect that a lot, man. I respect that a lot. I mean, at Coffee and Banana, our motto is just like wake up and drink coffee and get to work. And it's like literally the hustler's mentality, where it's like no excuses. I'm a firm believer of like hard work beats anything. And if you don't get it done this day or this year or next 5 years, you got to keep going and try to, as you said, go for the next level and try to keep on pushing yourself. So I respect you a lot, and that's why I wanted you on this platform, because you have a lot to say and you're always behind the scenes. Not many people see you as they will hopefully after this, that you're helping the city a lot, you know, just by the productions that you bring, converting carbon into a diamond, low-key Superman over here. And with this, the valuable knowledge you were able to give our audience. Thank you so much to Keyon Slowly for coming on the show and speaking about his experiences in the film industry and giving us some insightful information for anyone who wants to get in film, and not to mention his involvement in music that a lot of people don't know. We truly appreciate Keyon getting in front of the lens this time and dropping some knowledge in the two big industries when it comes to Canada, which is Vancouver and Toronto. Well, especially Vancouver. We hope that this conversation with Keyon inspired you today to go out and create. The most important thing to do is just create and just do it over and over again, and content really is king. A huge shout out to the Coffee and Banana team, production manager Cole Weststeyn, audio engineer Ryan Lohr, and our wonderful sponsors today, Shay's Way. But most importantly, you for listening. Visit our website at coffeeandbanana.com for more information about each episode. I'm your host, Kane Dabir. Enjoy some coffee and banana on your road to greatness.